What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and back with some more Tori Amos, and we're returning to Boys for Pele. Thank you again to Nigel. And the next tune is Father Lucifer, which certainly has, at least on the surface, religious connotations or even direct denotations. In the Judeo-Christian, I suppose I should say Abrahamic religious mythology, it speaks to Lucifer as a fallen angel, though again exactly which scripture you consult may reference the figure and the narrative surrounding him differently. Either way, the idea is a being which challenged the ultimate authority of the theistic entity and thus became a source of evil or corruption for humanity. To then say Father Lucifer would suggest maybe taking a different view or angle on it. Of course, it could be unrelated to the Abrahamic narratives, but I find that unlikely given the rarity of the name Lucifer. So either way, I expect not to necessarily know everything that's going on, and indeed when I reacted to Blood Roses, someone who commented literally said, good luck trying to figure out the narratives or the themes of the album, because seemingly her lyrics in this case are even more difficult to approach or to understand, not only on a first listen, but maybe even more broadly. So there's clearly some poetry which is on some level opaque or otherwise interpretable, I'm not sure if that's a word, but in different directions or allowing for different understanding. So, in any case, I'll see what I can catch on a first listen. This is Tori Amos, the track is Father Lucifer, and it's from the 1996 album Boys for Pele.
Lucifer, you never look so sane. You always did prefer the drizzle to the rain. Tell me that you're still in love with that milkmaid. How the Lizzies, how's your Jesus Christ been hanging? Nothing's gonna stop me from floating. Nothing's gonna stop me from floating. He says he reckons I'm a watercolor stain. He says I run and then I run from him and then I run. He didn't see me watching from the aeroplane. He wiped a tear and then he threw away our apple seed. Nothing's gonna stop me from floating. Nothing's gonna stop me from floating. Lucifer, you never look so sane. You always did prefer the drizzle to the rain. Tell me that you're still in love with that milkmaid. How the Lizzies, how's your Jesus Christ been hanging?
Another experience, indeed. At the beginning, I was doing my best to follow some of the lines, which did come back around at the very end of the tune, but by the middle section, I was really just lost in the sonics and the melody and the layered polyphonic vocals, which became even more numerous as it went along. And so, yes, I don't quite know what to make of the lines. Obviously, making reference to Jesus Christ, although in the context of how is it hanging. So, yes, there's clearly some religious connotations or references being made, but of course the idea of still being in love with the milkmaid and, preferring the drizzle to the rain, I don't even know how to piece those lines together. And as I said, by the middle, I wasn't even really hearing words anymore. I was hearing her vocal performance, again, at some moments breathy, at some moments lighter and more sprightly, and then eventually very layered and dense at different tempos and flourishing with different lines, and thus again very polyphonic. So I don't know what it's about, I don't quite know how to interpret it, and even if I had a readout of the lines, I might not be able to make clear sense of it, which again, I get that poetry sometimes is not only difficult to approach on a first listen or a first reading, but in some cases can be related to understandings and experiences that can be taken some different ways and are always, of course, filtered through the experiences and understandings of the reader or listener. But sonically, what a crazy tune. Like, we have the piano, which again has this light, sprightly sort of feel for the most part, but though also conveying some emotion and some deeper emotions through some of the work, and then almost having a Baroque feel, and then especially that brass, that really rich and almost horn concerto from a, let's say, late Baroque, early classical era sort of feeling. Those were really rich and enjoyable, and maybe my favorite part of the sonic configuration. So yes, there's a bit of a classical or Baroque feel to some of the sonics, and yet the delivery of her vocals with the piano feels very piano poet. I was almost thinking, not only have I commented that there's certain artists who are just off in their own dimension, Kate Bush being one that I often talk about in that regard, and Tori certainly giving me a similar and yet distinct type of flavor. This song had that, like, how do you even begin to unpack the sonic and vocal density in the way that a lot of Kate's tunes have made me think or feel as I experience them. So there's definitely a piano poet doing her own expressive artwork feel, which maybe doesn't run counter to or different from the Baroque type of concerto feel, but they're two different sides to the same track as I experienced it. So yeah, I feel like it wasn't even necessarily that long. I was going to say less than 4.5 minutes, but it's actually less than 4 minutes. But I feel like there was a lot more, so to speak, in this track than that relatively short duration would suggest, or which you would normally be inclined to think. So yes, I don't quite know what to make of it narratively or in terms of scene painting, but her vocals were incredible and also, again, very vulnerable or even human in moments where there's this breathy, whispered type of delivery, but more densely when it gets to the section where we hear a number of Tories, and of course I don't know if that necessarily relates to the lyrics, but seemingly asking questions of or making assessments of Father Lucifer, whether that be someone who's embedded in modern or, let's say, the human world, again, speaking to milkmaids and walking in nature such that you prefer drizzle to the rain, which, maybe speaks to some metaphorical understanding of intensity, which is to say drizzle is a type of precipitation that is much less intense than full-on rain, but also seemingly talking about Jesus Christ, though in a way that I'm not quite sure what to make of, because it gives a physical immediacy to it rather than some esoteric metaphysical expression of that figure and or supernatural significance. So yes, there's all sorts of things going on here, many of which did hit me and strike me as I listened to it, but I don't really know what to make of it all and what it might relate to for Tori specifically, or indeed in terms of theistic narratives or religious ideas more broadly. So I look forward to hearing people comment on this one. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.